Good morning on this last day of 2023. And although today we begin a new portion in a new book of Exodus, I for one love Genesis, and it's hard to leave Genesis. So since it's the last day of the year, we will go back to what we spoke about this Shabbos and what we read in the Torah. We all know that this Shabbat we finished the book of Genesis, and we all stood as we culminated with the passing of Joseph, and we said Chazak, Chazak, v'nit Chazek. But earlier in the portion, we read in the portion of Vayechi, which speaks about the life of Jacob, we read about Jacob's passing too. And the rabbis tell us, the Torah tells us, that Joseph and Jacob and all of the people of Israel escorted Jacob to his final resting place in Israel, in the tomb of Machpelah. Jacob makes Joseph promise that he will bring him to the Holy Land to bury him, that he will not allow him to stay in Egypt. And Joseph himself and all of Pharaoh's people and the dignitaries and the government people escort Jacob, this great prophet and patriarch and leader of the generation, to his final resting place. But the Talmud tells us something remarkable that happened, that when they came to Jacob's resting place at the tomb of the Machpelah in Hebron, suddenly Esav appeared, and he didn't let the procession continue. He blocked them. And he said like this: Adam and Eve are buried here. Isaac and Rebekah are buried here. Sarah and Abraham are buried here. And now Leah's buried here. There's one more spot. And when Isaac passed, he gave one of the last spots to me and one to Jacob. Jacob buried Leah. The last one is mine. You can't bury Jacob here. But everyone had known that Jacob actually bought the spot from Esau, because Esau had no interest in spirituality and spiritual things. And Jacob said, I'll pay you for it. And he paid him to buy the final spot. And that's why he had allowed Leah to be buried there, because he knew that he had the last spot. So everyone tells Esau, what happened? You forgot that you sold it? He says, prove it. Bring the contract. Well, guess what? The contract was in Egypt. What are they going to do? It was before WhatsApp. It was before scans, before FedEx, before all these things. You couldn't see it. So what do? They send Naphtali in the blessings that Jacob gives Naphtali, this week's Torah portion. He calls him Naphtali Ayala Shlucha. Naphtali was swift as a deer. He was the quickest of the sons. They send him to go fetch it. But the Midrash tells us, even if Naphtali ran as quick as he could, it would take 3, 4, 5 days to get him back. So meanwhile, Jacob's body in his coffin, and Joseph, the viceroy of Egypt, and the 12 tribes, and everyone is standing there, all the dignitaries, and they can't get in. What are you going to do? Now, Dan had a son, his name was Chushim. Chushim was deaf, and also he had a hard time speaking. He sees the commotion. He doesn't understand what happens. He walks over, he sees Esau is blocking his father. He takes a stick, he was a strong person, and he hits Esau over the head. Esau falls, and he dies. Says the Midrash, and this is where Rebekah's prophecy came true. That Rebekah said she would lose. Why should I lose my 2 sons in one day? And both of them were buried on the same day. But the question arises, I don't understand. Joseph, the viceroy of Egypt, the second most powerful person in the world, is standing there. Why didn't he say something to Esau? Why didn't he push Esau away and let the procession go by? Everyone knew that Esau sold the spot. Everyone knew that it was Jacob's final resting place. And here was the prophet of the generation standing his coffin in such disrespect. Where was Judah? Judah was the mightiest of the brothers. He was so strong. What about Shimon and Levi? They destroyed the whole city of Shechem. What did they do? Why did it take Chushim to be the one to stop this madness? And why did the Torah have to tell us that Chushim was deaf? Why is that relevant? Some of the commentaries tell us something that's so powerful and so relevant to today. You see, Chushim was deaf, and only because he was deaf was he able to do what was right. He saw the atrocity. He saw the ridiculousness of the fact that Jacob, the greatest man of the generation, was lying there in his coffin and wasn't being allowed to be buried because of an evil man, Esau, who had sold the place but was playing politics and games. You see, Joseph and Judah and Shimon and Levi and all the brothers, they were hearing CNN, they were hearing BBC, they were hearing the UN, and suddenly they were hearing arguments. There was two sides to the story. And therefore, they got into the argument. And once they got into the argument, they had to discuss it. And once they were discussing it, there was a rationale to both sides. It didn't allow them to do what was right and stop the madness. Only Chushim, who was deaf, was able to have the courage to do that. You see, that's been the story of the Jewish people. And that's the story since October 7th. When a people tell you that they want to kill, rape, murder, behead you, you can't listen to the two sides. You can't listen to those that want to rationalize evil and madness. But you need to go as a deaf person and eradicate the evil. The world wants to desensitize us to the fact that Hamas wants to murder, butcher, kill, and annihilate every Jew. And suddenly they say, 1 second, we have to discuss it. There's two sides. But what we have to learn from Chushim is there is no two sides. When someone says, I want to kill you, you have no right to live. There's no but. There's no other side. When someone says you don't have the right to your homeland, to your ancestral land, there is no if, buts. You have to be strong and deaf to the reality of these people who hate so much and want to annihilate us. The moment we equivocate it with a second side, the moment, of course, negotiations, discussions, hearing another side is always good, but not when it comes to the essence of who you are, to someone wanting to annihilate you, to someone not wanting you to have the right to live, to have a homeland. Then you can never do it. You know, there was this great chassid in the old country in Europe. His name was Rabbi Yisrael Nevler. He was a remarkable man. He had such a way with words, with persuasion, with stories, with anecdotes. He died in Pucking, Germany in 1948. And he once said something remarkable. He said, if I come to heaven, I could sin all I want in this world because I'm not worried. I could mesmerize. God could send the greatest prosecutor, an angel, to prosecute me, but I could mesmerize them with my words, with my anecdotes, with my stories, with my way with words, and I'll get away with it. There's only one thing I'm scared of, that God will send me a deaf angel. You see, sometimes when you start listening to the insanity of this world since October 7th, don't forget that on October 7th, 30 groups at Harvard, before we even went back into Gaza, equivocated and gave voice to the madness, to the evil, to the sheer murderers of Hamas. Don't forget that it took 2 months for women rights groups to condemn the rape, and even then they didn't do it unequivocally. The moment we are not deaf, the moment we listen, we become part of the madness. We equivocate. We, as Jews, have to stand together and united in a sense that we don't hear the world and eradicate the Hamas and the evil. Because yes, the world's upset. The world is upset that we have the strength to finally defend ourselves. As I've told you before, Menachem Begin said it's better to have a bad press than a good eulogy. And that's the message the Torah portion sends us with Chushim. Chushim was deaf, and the Torah lets us know he was deaf. And because he was deaf, he didn't listen to BBC and CNN and to the UN and to the progressives and to AOC and to Ayanna Pressley and to Elizabeth Warren. Because he couldn't hear. He just saw the vile danger. He just saw the murderers. He just saw the hate. And he unequivocally fought against it. My friends, as we finish the year of 2023, we're in our last day, and we get ready for 2024. We have to make a resolution that we will never forget what happened on October 7th, and that we will never be weak, and we will never give excuses or give equivalence to murderers, to rapists, and to those that support them. Am Yisrael Chai. Have a great day. And may this coming year of 2024 be better than 2023. And may we have reason to celebrate peace, love, joy, and the eternity of the Jewish people. Have a great day and happy